My father is the only person in my family I was close to, so when tragedy struck and I was left a giant surprise, well, you can see why I decided to fight for it. I'm 25 male, have a conflicted relationship in life. Let's throw some light on my main story and we'll proceed accordingly. It was already a dark and cold Christmas night and I was sleeping alone in my room. I still remember that Christmas. It was one of the hardest days of my life. I knew I never had a normal life like everyone else, not a normal family. China also never caught the chance to enjoy a Christmas Eve with my father, mother, and my siblings and grandparents. I was always ruminating and evaluating the whole complex situation of mine, and I always left with so many questions. There was nothing that can invigorate me. According to many philosophers, a family is the fundamental structure that defines an individual's identity and plays a crucial role in personal development. The social institution that provides emotional support. But can we generalize this to all family structures? Or am I the species that dropped into the destructive institution? Have you ever ruminated about the term personality? Do you know that your familial conflicts will lead you towards a destructive personality? Am I more prone towards having personality disorders, borderline personality, or split personality? Little did I know, I was struggling with the relationships in my life. For me, the concept of love is mere deception that can allure you towards something that can strangle you towards death. I've seen the worst in people. Well, we can't use the word people right here because it includes strangers only. It must be better if I say I saw the darkness lurking inside my family. Do you even know how does it feel to pretend in front of them that you haven't seen something abysmal in them? When I was 10 years old, I saw my parents fighting with each other like the devil. The little boy, that was me, of course, was so afraid and he hid inside the blanket. I could hear the voice of my father yelling at my mom. Being a little child, I found my mother miserable and I considered my father a fiend. I could not comprehend right and wrong, good and bad, and light and darkness. I saw the rage in my father and the tears in my mother's eyes. I started making judgments accordingly, and I heard my father screaming at her and inquiring about the money that she took from his bank account. At that point, I considered it insane, as it's right for a wife to take money for the husband, but I can't understand that my mother is just always after money. She didn't show love and the affection to my father. Rather, she is just taking all the money away from him. My father saved that money for the security of our future, but my mother engulfed all of it. My mother portrayed her narcissistic behavior and she proved herself innocent and right. I considered my father the furious guy who was always in the burnout phase of his life. And for me, my mother is the miserable human that stumbled upon him and dealt with his aggressive tendencies. I began to rebel against my father, and you can say I started hating him to the core. I'm seeing in the direction of the rigid wall, but I can't see what was actually behind the wall. I was seeing the case from the other side, but I wasn't seeing it while removing the inner layers. The main conflict arises when one day my mother was packing all of her stuff. My father wasn't at home and I got scared. I swooped into her room and she was on the call with somebody. She asked him to wait outside of our house after 2 hours. It was nothing but rather than man with whom she was having an affair. She opened the locker and took all the money from my father. I rushed towards her and I confronted her that she is stealing my father's money, but she pushed me back and I could see the malicious desire in her eyes just for the sake of the money. Well, she took all the expensive things from the home. I was scared and my world went upside down. The hatred for my mother was incarnated in my heart with every single second. I slouched into the dining room and I called my father. My father consoled me and asked me to remain calm as he was on his way, and I started screaming at my mom and my mother was still in contact with the other man. She just held me tightly and asked me to keep my mouth shut. The sun was glaring and there was the haze in the sky at the time, and on that day, I just started hating my mother even more. My mother slapped me when I asked her to leave all the money to father. When I called her the animal who is just after the money and played with the deep emotions of other people, the apocalypse came and there was an ambush at my home. She left, and she did not stop. I could not believe that she was gone. I was in extreme trepidation, and I could not believe what I've seen. It was the treachery, or beyond, that she'd be ostracized from society. She was the snake that was wrapped inside the costume of the human. I can see that in her eyes, I can feel it to the core. There's no purity in her soul, and she was one of the mothers that doesn't care about her children as well. One day, I slipped from the cycle and there was bleeding with intense pain. I was crying in agony and calling for help. She saw me and started gibbering, and she ignored me and did not come forward. The innocent child did not pay attention and still sought for mother's affection. In my teen ages, I had so many problems growing up. My mother, who had left us for money and maybe apparently for some other man, she was in love with him. Or maybe she was in love with his money. She was living in her own idealistic world, and in the particular world, she's surrounded by money. Well, she prioritized material wealth and financial security over personal, intimate relationships. She forgets that emotional relationships are the fundamental element for having good health rather than being blinded by money. My father always just had emotional issues dealing with his family and me. Sometimes he would only look at me with disgrace and no hope. It leads me to think that I might drag out just like my friend leaving forever. He was always living a life of trouble and pain. Over the years, I went to college and my dad started to live alone, completely without me. I was trying to find new friends or maybe a new family. I was getting a difficult time making new friends and getting into relationships. I got admitted to making school. I did not return event for summer break or Christmas. I fell in love with a girl. Her name was Kinsey. The day I saw her intimidating blue eyes and curly brown hair leading to her shoulders, I had a huge crush on her. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to talk to her, but one fine day, I was walking down the hall and I saw her there. I acted normal and pretended like I did not see her at all. I stumbled upon a clumsy girl from our batch and she was flustered. She seemed furious and there was something going on that was going to happen. She wasn't seeming nonchalant. As I tried to pass her, she put her feet right in the middle of the way and I fell on the floor. The whole school was making fun of me and a few people were patronizing me. It was an extremely abysmal act and I was devastated. I was almost about to cry, and here the Kinsey came into the scene. She was the savior, and she protected me in front of the whole school. She made them shut their mouth and gave warnings to her. I was about to go, and she stopped me. And we started going out as friends, and then a friendship later converted into a romantic dating. We would go out together, would go on walks and work together on projects, and make out in the backyard of my classroom. Everything was going fine and normal, and then I started to have some anxiety and trust issues. I started to reevaluate the whole relationship again. It was something that's constantly bugging me, and I can't put myself into straight thinking process, and something's really wrong with my cognition processes. There was something inside my head that I was ignoring since my childhood, and now it's taken the shape of the demon in my head, and I'm unable to kill it. It was leading me to lose the friendships and intimate relationships of my life. After some time, she also started to think that I am the problem. I was not able to communicate with her. Clearly, I was afraid to lose her as well. Therefore, I decided to stay quiet and see where does it go. After a few days, I made a plan with Michael, one of my friends, for watching a movie and taking some time off. It was a very fortunate day because Kinsey was with someone else. I was burning out. I ran out of the cinema without talking or telling anything to anyone, and I was just devastated, and my eternal heart was shocked to the core. I went to my room and packed up all my stuff and left. One day I had not contacted my father to talk to him even once, and I did not know what to do, where to go ahead and no place to go. In 3 hours I reached home. I booked an over-under line and my father was still not there. I opened the door and went inside. As I stepped in the house, my feelings just sparkled and it hit me so hard that my eyes became wet. The whole living lounge was filled with different stuff and smelly food was present on the table. There was dust all around and it seemed like the father has developed some other issues, other than just emotional ones. The aroma of the house was not good at all. It doesn't feel humane. "Dad, are you there? Are you at home?" My voice shrined and I called out for Mom as well. "Mother, are you home?" "Dang it, what's wrong with me?" She left me and I still think about her calling for me. She deserves my hatred. I just let my emotions come out on the surface. I did not suppress them. I cried and cried harder. I could not understand what was going on with me. I was angry at myself for trusting another person. I thought I deserved all of this. It was because of me, as I was the main problem in the relationship, wasn't I? I was the naive person who let go of people when they left me. It was heart-wrenching for me. Well, I am the clumsiest person, then how can I blame others for this? I swooped into my own emotions and I did not control them. Who told you to trust someone? Your life has taught you not to trust anyone, but again you did it. I was just murmuring and talking with my own self. I kept on crying. Meanwhile, my father walked and he saw me crying like a paranoid creature. He came ahead and helped me, and for some reason I think it's my father. I really hope that. I never felt his love and affection in my life. My sad emotions were rampant and I want his closure and love. He wiped off my tears and asked me to get up. He told me that he is with me no matter what, and he asked me to freshen up and he made delicious dinner for me. After eating dinner, I was feeling a bit low and stable. I went up into the room and took a shower. The next day, it was Christmas Eve, and he asked me to stay with him for the night. We saw my childhood pictures together, and he asked me to forgive him as he was not the best father. Little did I know, he was battling cancer. On Christmas morning, I knocked on his room, and I had made him some breakfast, especially his favorite dishes, and his favorite orange juice. Maybe it's time that I resonate my feelings and accept confrontation. I'll give us another chance as a father and son, so... I knocked at the door. He didn't open it. After 5 minutes, I entered the room and saw him laying on the bed. My father was dead. I called an ambulance. I was devastated, and my whole life I cursed him because of his actions and decisions. My whole life I made him realize that he had made the worst decisions, and now the consequences we are facing because of him. And he was declared dead, right there at the hospital. I can still never forget that particular Christmas Eve, yet the Christmas of my life was the worst. The next day to Christmas, I had his phone and all the belongings of my father. My childhood friends came to the funeral. Joy, one of my childhood friends, was also there. As I saw him, I burst into tears. He helped me and I cried for about 20 minutes. He came home with me from the funeral and it was joy. He was not just a great friend, but rather a supportive friend. He was always there for my father whenever he needed someone. He had been in contact with my father and he asked me to have some food. He ordered some food and we had dinner together. At 5, we had dinner, and he told me that he had been in contact with my dad for a while. And he needs the file. And his father has transferred all of his wills, all of his property, including the main house, to Alex. Well, I was shocked to the core. I can't believe what I was hearing. What? My father? He transferred all his property to me? Well, I simply don't understand. Maybe he didn't. Your father was a good man. He had been in contact, and he could not be a good father, but he had everything deep inside his heart for you that he was unable to express. He loved you so much, Alex. I knew you had a very difficult time growing up. Your mother left you alone, and your father was dealing with some emotional trauma. He didn't do his best. But while he was alone, he knew that he had not loved you enough, and cancer made him miserable already. He called me one day and asked me to transfer the property to you. The process was initiated while he was still alive. 2 paper signings left from your side, and then everything would be yours. I didn't want anything, but I was happy to listen to his side of affection. I had a lot of regrets in my life, and this would be my biggest regret yet, that I could not tell him that I loved him so much. I wanted to apologize for my affliction. It was some afflicting actions towards him, and I misunderstood him in my childhood youth. My father loved me enough. It was proof of his love and affection for me, which I was not able to see while he was alive. I asked Joy to carry on the legal proceedings, and Joy left for his home and I stayed awake. The whole night I was just reminiscing about my teenage years, and I remember how my mother left me alone, and I realized what a great man my father was. He was left alone, and I just felt bad for leaving him. I was crying and calling out for him, but he was not there, and he won't be there. I wish I could have stayed with him. Maybe he would not have died of cancer and we could have made some good memories. But it's all over now. I'm sorry for letting you down, but please forgive me. I hope you have a safe journey on the other side of the world. Amen. Update number 1. Hey guys, just a quick update. The next day I woke up and started getting ready to meet Joy at the court. While I was getting dressed, I thought about the shirt that had an intense stain from the previous day. I decided to have some breakfast and boiled an egg. After that, I looked up some milk from the fridge and sat down to eat. Suddenly, I heard a knock at the door. I got up and opened it, only to be greeted with shock and pain in my eyes. It was my mother, dressed in black and with tears in her eyes. She looked at me, stepped ahead, and started to cry. "I'm sorry, my love. I'm sorry for your loss. Your daddy loves you, my little girl. Don't you worry, I'm here for you. You should not be alone. I've come back to you." I'm so much confused. Suddenly tears ran down my cheeks and I didn't know how to react. I had her back, but was she supporting me? Should I be happy or worried? After so many years she came back, but after that she stayed quiet. She was acting weird. Weirder than usual and pretending to be someone else that she clearly was not. She asked me if she could enter the house and she had her suitcase with her. It was as if she was planning on staying here. And then I went down to meet Joy. I was skeptical about her presence in my home, and when I was leaving my house I saw my mother taking a wallet of money from one of my father's rooms. She remembered where he used to put his wallets and all the expensive stuff. I can't look sadness on her face, but rather a smile that was portraying something else. She took out her mobile and texted somebody again. I was extremely mad, and I went to confront her. "What do you think you're doing, Mother? Seriously? Still you need money? You can't even wait?" "I was just taking care of your father's belongings, honey." You know as well as I know what you're doing, for God knows why you came here. But you always put yourself first." "You're insulting me now. You better behave yourself, brat." "You're taking money from my father's cabin, and I can't even confront you, Mom. That's not going to happen." I smashed the door and she starts screaming at me. Her aggressive tendencies started to appear again, and her narcissistic attitude towards society once arised. I was having flashbacks of the memory of when she left me and my father alone. We were all alone and she didn't care about us. She even went for the guy and took all the money from my father. I can't shake off the feeling that I had when she left us. As soon as I reached my destination, I walked directly into Joy's office. He was sitting in his office and I knocked at the door and entered. He asked me how I was doing. He clearly observed my facial expression and manifested his prediction. I told him that I was not in a good mood, and my conflicted emotions were absolutely rampant. I told him how my mother has just arrived at home. "What? Your mother? She's here? I can't believe it." Update number 2. "Yeah, she's here." I looked at him and asked why he's saying that. He told me that his father was not in contact with his mother for a little time. changing that he was fighting cancer and she had asked him multiple times what he would do with the property. This is why he named everything to you, Alex. Your mother does not have any part of his property. But the legal proceedings are yet to be completed. She might also feel suspicious and will come after you. With my experience, please sign for it. She will not be able to care for this year. He said, your mother cannot claim anything. He told me to relax and get up to leave for the court. On the way to court, we stopped to have a cup of coffee. I ordered my usual cappuccino with 1 pump of vanilla syrup. Joy and I always go out and have coffee together. He advised me to relax and remember the good old days. After that, we went to court. He showed me all the legal papers. He took an appointment at the court, and I would have to show up so that the property would be transferred to me in the next 3 days. I headed back toward my home. There was something abnormal, and I was suspicious enough. She was in the kitchen. She was making food for me. There was a strange aroma amongst the kitchen, and I'm unable to comprehend it. She asked me to sit down with her and just to have some food so that they may remember her father together and contemplate the loss. Now I knew the intentions of my mother, but I didn't want to show them, I thought. Keep it to myself and let the legal proceedings occur. Little did I know, my mom was a step ahead of everything. She started to talk about my father, and she portrayed my father, and now all of a sudden she had this love for him. She was pretending like she always knew him and his intentions. Oh, my love, I know that you're alone now. Please forgive me, my love. If I knew that he was fighting cancer, I would have been here much before, and we could have left as a good family, and you, well, he was not enough. A good husband and a father, but he loved you and so did I. Please forgive us, love. I looked into the eyes of a mother. I could not understand how by she lied so much to my face. I knew what she was saying did not make any sense. I could not hold it to myself, and I shouted at her. Stop lying to me. You left me or my father. If you cared about us, you would have never left me alone when I needed you the most. You didn't love us. You only loved money and yourself. And this is why you're back here again. You're not here for me. You're only here for property. But you're not going to get it. Father's already transferred the whole property to me, and it's going to be mine in a few days. There was a very weird, suspicious look on my mother's face. Well, I was always in deep regret that I broke my father into a million pieces, but I was all wrong all the time. It wasn't me, it was my mother. My mother's toxic traits, her greediness engulfed my father. I don't know the ins and outs of her relationship with my father, and I know the dynamics, her manipulative actions and her devastating plan of actions. She smiled and then said, "Oh, my Alex, why do you hate me so? I did not leave you for money. I made a better choice for my future, and look, I'm here for you, and what I've earned is all yours. I don't need you or your father's money, but yes, I do have a part in his property. I'm his ex-wife, and you cannot deprive me of that, my love. I'm here to fight. I'm here to live together as a family, and well, come over your father's painful demise." I got up and asked my mother to leave the house as soon as she can. Dear Alex, it's not as simple as you think it is, as there are so many things that you do not know yet about your father. You're not your only child. You have a brother. He's the son of your father. Your father never trusted me, and he never let me come back to you or himself. It was the fault of your father that I had to stay away from you. Stop lying to me. Stop lying to my face. I could not have a brother. I know that you're lying again. You're just here for the property, and that's it. I'm going to call my lawyer, and you can leave. When I spoke to her, she informed me that my brother would arrive that night and that I should keep quiet. According to him, the property would be divided into 3 parts, and I wouldn't need to worry about anything. After the conversation, I went upstairs to my room and called my friend Joy. I shared with him what I've learned, and he wasn't surprised. He had always suspected that my mother was only interested in the property and had never cared about our family. However, I revealed to him that my mother had mentioned that I had a brother and that he would be coming to claim a share of the property that night. I was perplexed as I had no idea about any such sibling. Joy, being my close friend, suggested that I should be cautious and try to find out more about this unknown brother before making any hasty decisions. We talked for a while longer, and Joey reassured me that he would be there for me if I needed him. His words calmed me down, and I felt much better. I thanked him for his support and ended the call, feeling a sense of relief knowing that I had someone to rely on during this uncertain time. Meanwhile, he executed his plan and signed the papers to start legal proceedings in the court. He and his mother have to go to court every 3 weeks, and there will be 3 sessions of the court that they have to attend with lawyers. In the very first meeting, both parties presented their cases and their side of the concerns, and in the first 2 sessions, it was declared that the house of my father is definitely mine, as it was evident on the legal paper and my father transferred it to my name. My mother's lawyer tried to prove that the other property belonged to her, and that her son was entitled to a share of it. However, my lawyer argued that the home belonged to my father and it belonged, therefore, directly to me. The court carefully examined all the evidence and declared that my mother's claims were baseless. The home was rightfully mine, and my father had never transferred it to her. Moreover, her so-called son was not legally entitled to any share of the property at all, as there's no evidence to support his claim of being related to our family. For the other properties, bank account holders, the court asked to provide the evidence of both of the parties. Update number 4. Final update posted by OP. Joey told me to relax and asked me to meet in the morning for breakfast just to discuss the legal proceedings. At night, I stayed in my room. I heard a man entering the house. My mother knocked at the door, but I pretended to be asleep. The next morning, I got up and left to see Joy. I told you that my unseen brother is also now at my house. Joey told me to relax. He told me that he already knew about his mother and her son. It wasn't appropriate to reveal everything on the call last night, and he remained quiet as she was already in deep shock. As his father was already conducted, a DNA test, and it was not his father's son, it was only his mother's son. And he had another father, and it's fine here. He has not any part of the property. He told me to stay quiet as he presented all of this in the setting of the court. He would not let her cunning mother take over all the property that his father left. It was meant for Alex, and it will remain for him. I was dealing with extremely painful emotions, and I'm her own son, and she's fighting for the property with her own blood. Does it make any sense to you? All this time, she was the one responsible for the carnage in our home. She took away all the peace from our lives and always did toxic self-introspection. I went back to the house at night, and my half-brother opened the door. As I looked at him, I was in pain. I didn't say anything, and I went right to the room. Please sit down, Alex, for a while. I didn't know before that I had a family. I'm your brother. Will you not talk to me? Joy wants me to relax and not say anything to my brother until the court proceedings. I looked at him. Look, I don't want to talk to anyone right now, and please don't use the word family again. I don't have a family. My father's dead, who was my only family, and I don't know you or your mother. So please don't call me your sister ever again. He told me that he was not here for money or for property. And he said as soon as my mother told me that I had a brother, I came down here for him. He told me that my mother only wants the money, but he wanted to have a family for once. I didn't bat an eye, and went into my room. And the next day we were all at the court proceeding where Joy presented the evidence of the DNA. And finally, the court declared him my brother, but a half-brother, and he was not the son of my dad. So he did not have any part of the property, and my father transferred the property to me while he was alive. My mother also could not get any part of it, and it's all transferred straight to me after the court proceedings. I'm hurt and extremely in agony. My mother hated me to the core after the court proceedings, and now she was begging me to live with me. After playing emotional tricks, she wanted to take that home again. I know her intentions, I know it, and I don't want her to come over. Honestly speaking, the whole time I was speculating, she would say, "Please come," and just wanted to live with you, my son. Forgive me. I wanted her to stay and I wanted her to be part of the family, but I think I have to kill all the desires of love and the affection that I had for my mom. She deserved it. I think that what I learned from life is not a bed of roses. You will lose everything for knowing the value of the relationship and that particular thing in your life. There will be the upheaval of emotions and your own family will start gaslighting you, but you have to be cautious and selective, and just select the wise mind along with the logical mind. The fact that OP just has to put up with all this. I mean, this was a sad story, no matter how you look at it. But I would like to hear from you guys. What would you have done if you were in this position? The father passes away, and here comes the mother, trying to act like she was there the whole time, trying to comfort you and whatnot, but it turns out she's just a big ol' phony. How would you go about dealing with it? Drop a comment down below, guys, and I will see you in the next one.